when the Naira redesign was seen as a policy against my party and my presidential candidate. President Buhari was praised to high heavens by almost every member of the PDP. It is rather startling that the same President Buhari is described in the way that the PDP man is describing him now. Wonders shall never end. But having said so, I said earlier on that I'm not here to represent INEC. The reason results were not transmitted, if they were not transmitted, is an answer for INEC or a question for INEC. For us, we have lost elections, we have lost sub-national elections. The last one was in Osun. And we did not go to town, even when we discovered that the ballots were more than recorded in the what is it they call it?
Beavers.
The beavers. All what we did was to take advantage of the provisions of the law. Comrade Tanko, in his addressing the issue, said that they have a lot of evidence. This is interesting, which means that his work in the tribunal has been made easy with the number of evidences that he has against the process. And he talks about doctrine of necessity. I believe that the doctrine of necessity happened in the National Assembly. I cannot remember that this happened within the process of one seeking redress in the judiciary or the tribunal. My plea to them is that more evidences should be discovered, put together, and they should approach the court for the resolution of their matter. But you see, like I said when I started here, he says the president-elect is not his president. It is okay, you can say that. But he wishes to be his president. He wishes to be the president of those who did not vote for him. And I am the spokesperson for the ICC of the APC. And mine is not to look at the complaints of the PDP and the complaints of the Labour. Mine is to try and communicate to the public the intentions of Mr. President-elect, and who, by the special grace of God, will be successfully sworn in on the 29th of May 2023. That is my concern. I do know that with the coming of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that the story will be different for Nigeria and Nigerians. Because even his advent as a governor of Lagos, I lived in Lagos for 11 years, and I know what I am saying. I know that his advent into Lagos as the governor of Lagos changed the story and the narrative for Lagos and Lagosians. So, he awaits the embrace of Nigerians to the reality that we have a president-elect. We have a president-elect. I think that, honestly, I ought to have been excused Then when we want to do an analysis of what he represents, what he has brought into governance, or what he intends to do with governance in Nigeria, that is when you would call us to come and discuss. I think that the excessive rumination of what happened it is not our business. It is
so
the
you're
business.
saying that Nigerians don't demand to hear from your
No,
part
no.
and listen to
What I'm trying to say is that just a few hours after my candidate had been declared as president-elect, I am here talking about the pains of the PDP and the pains of the Labour. I am not interested in that. What I am interested in is that today we do have a president-elect, and we need to use that opportunity to calm Nigerians down so that we can have peace, because development will come. And we cannot have peace when we cannot have development when we do not have peace. So because when they begin to say things that are not true about my party, I will now have to respond to to those kinds of things. It does not help the public. It does not help Nigerians. My intention is that Nigerians should be made to understand that no matter your emotional investment in the electoral process, that one person will be declared a winner, and that emotion must be addressed.
And that's why you're here to have those conversations, to speak to
see,
them and to get a buy-in in it. Because at the end of the day, we are receiving these conversations as you're speaking on air, and some people are saying there is a sense of silence, pensiveness. It's good to hear these dynamics from you. And I think it's important because as you lay the groundbreaking, stage for the swearing in, like you've spoken about, it's good to have all Nigerians on the same table.
Okay, how do you respond to when somebody said that we arranged to donate a state to another political party? How do you want me to respond to that kind of narrative? So the Katsina people were just waiting for us to donate them to the PDP, or now donate the people of Lagos to the Labour Party, or donate the people of Kaduna to PDP. Like I told you earlier on, we did not sit down as APC to say to ourselves, when we go to these elections, let us lose Lagos, let us lose Kaduna, let us lose Kano, let us lose Katsina. And these are the states with very high volume of votes. These are the states that we will contrive to lose. All right,
let's just as a round up.
Now, so what I am saying in essence is that my brother from the Labour Party and my brother from the PDP should do the needful.
All right, I think because we're running out of time quickly, Jide has just been in the box just before everybody goes.
If
2 seconds.
You have the space right now to prove me wrong from my allegation, I'll be so contented. And I'm making this particular allegation on fact. We just saw it recently that the total number of votes that Labour Party won in Lagos was far above 900, not the 500 that you allocated to us. That we knew that you allocated.
All right.
And then, sorry, please. And then there's this flagrant impunity of statement and saying, no, it doesn't really matter. Now we've already won elections, so you can go to court and we don't need to discuss some of these particular issues. That is impunity and abusing and insulting with disdain to the Nigerian people who have suffered and toiled, paid their money, traveled from every part of this world to come and vote to ensure that the process works for them. And you deny them that particular fact, and you think that probably their word does not matter. In fact, what you have just done was actually incite violence more than what you have already done.
I would like to end on the note that at no time was President Muhammadu Buhari the darling of the PDP. The Naira redesign policy about which he spoke is a policy, is another example of the failed policies of President Muhammadu Buhari. That policy in itself was badly implemented and caused severe suffering and hardship on the Nigerian people. Is the PDP implemented several Naira redesign policies without any sort of similar hardship. The APC, that policy about which you represent, to which he referred, is another example of the failures of President Muhammadu Buhari. Thank you for bringing it to fore. It just buttresses my point that we spent the last 8 years watching and suffering under the failure of that administration.
We're looking for solution now, you know, really.
My mandate was stolen and we would challenge it. We did not use it.
Okay, you will challenge it. Just before we go, so where do we go from here? Because we're looking for solution to all of this, and again, not to, you know, allow the country to implode, you know, because of all of this. What should we be doing now? Do you have confidence, at least in the judiciary, that whoever goes there to seek for justice will get it?
Yeah, we just should avoid resorting to self-help. It doesn't help anybody. We remember the 2011 episode where an estimated 800 people lost their lives in post-election blues after the declaration of President Goodluck Jonathan as the president-elect. We do not want a repeat of that. And I think that's what my brother here from APC may be alluding to. However, we cannot have a closure to this dispute unless the court says so. The good news is that the law, electoral law, has made provision for election dispute resolution. And that should be the next stage that should be activated. However, for INEC, there will be need to audit that process, independent audit. What really went wrong? So much was promised, little was delivered, and we cannot continue to just paper over inefficiencies and incompetencies that we have seen exhibited by the electoral management body, in spite of the huge resources invested to deliver optimal electoral outcome. I do not care who, if P2B has won or Atiku has won. It would not have made any difference to me. I'm not eating up their table. But the most important thing is that hope that Nigeria intended to have in this process and legitimacy that should have been conferred on the outcome of this election is being stripped of it. And we just hope that there will be an independent audit of exactly what went wrong, so that we can administratively bring a closure to this, while the legal options which is available to political parties and contestants can be pursued independently.
All right, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on the program. We've been speaking with lawyer and member of the PDP, Ilemona Onoja, and also the Director, Media and Publicity, Tinubu, Shetima Grassroots Independent Campaign Council, Ntufam Hildad Etta, who also was on the show, as well as Jide Ojo, an election observer, and Tanko Unisa, Chief Spokesperson of the Labour Party. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. God bless Nigeria.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. That's what we have discussed on the elections so far. We will take a short break and come back for other segments of the program.
Our intent is to offer constructive support to help strengthen the democratic culture, processes and institutions in Nigeria.
Nigeria is important first and foremost to Nigerians. This election is consequential, and it will be important for your country to promote stability and security.
The world's eyes will be on Nigeria, are on Nigeria, and what happens here will send a very strong signal.
We're proud, as a fellow large, diverse democracy, to be in partnership with Nigeria.
This month's elections will be Africa's largest democratic exercise. It is clear that the outcomes of the elections will be significant not only for Nigeria, but also for the entire continent.
So that means that the heads of the political parties in particular must commit to respect the outcome of the vote and signal that to all of their supporters.
What we hope for and have taken steps to encourage is that you have a free and fair process that is credible and peaceful.
Our intent is to offer constructive support to help strengthen the democratic culture, processes and institutions in Nigeria. In doing so, the Commonwealth Observer Group will make recommendations to the authorities concerned on institutional, procedural, and other matters that would assist the holding of such elections in future.
Whenever an administration changes, whether in America or in another government, it's a good opportunity to stop and take stock. What are we doing well? Where could we do better? What are our shared goals? What are our shared challenges?
We've continued to invest in trying to create the conditions for a credible, free and fair, secure election, recognizing, of course, this is a job primarily for Nigeria, but we tried to play our part. So we've worked very closely with INEC and with civil society to ensure that they are fit for purpose.
Our world is interconnected, and that we face common opportunities as well as common challenges, and that we're more effective in taking advantage of opportunities and confronting challenges when we work together. So it's my anticipation that we will continue to work hand in hand with Nigeria.
We urge all stakeholders in Nigeria to uphold their commitment to ensure a peaceful and inclusive election in which people of Nigeria are able to freely exercise their right to vote, with the fundamental freedoms of expression, of association, of assembly fully respected.
I believe Nigerians should have confidence in this electoral system and this electoral process. But I also call on all Nigerians every single person needs to hold up their responsibility for democracy. Democracy is hard, right? It requires effort.
The UK remains absolutely in step with you as you go and continue your democratic journey.
So I hope everyone can do their best to prevent violence during the campaign in these intense few days before the election, to prevent violence on the day of the election, and to prevent violence after the election during the transition.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us. We're still on the Nigeria election situation room on Africa Independent Television. Time to begin our next conversation, still on the review of the process to this national election, that is the 2023 general election, the presidential and national assembly, which has gone out so far. Dorothy Njemanze is our guest. She's of the Nigerian election situation room 2023. She worked during this election monitoring elections in the women situation room in Nigeria. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me on.
Maybe my first question will be, having observed the process and having monitored from the women's situation room, what's your general, view of how the process went?
Okay, so of course my views are my personal views, yes, based on my observations. There was a large turnout of women. Because of the fact technology was deployed, a lot of human beings were hopeful, anticipated a lot. We were promised that real time we will be able to monitor the system and there will be no mago-mago. I speak mago-mago language because I'm a grassroots person and I know the language of the people, right? And so the people came out en masse and came out with their devices and recharged, had data, and were ready to be monitoring the elections real time. But that was a far cry. So there were questions that arose from how come the same systems that were used to accredit people, you know, failed when it was time to upload results and all of that. And there were high incidences of people who were accredited that were not permitted to vote, amongst other things. There were reports of all these things. In my polling units, personally, when there were issues with the INEC officials who seemed aloof of a lot of things they were supposed to be doing, all the INEC hotlines were off. And so it left us wondering, all the money that was deployed to INEC to ensure that we had a peaceful election, a credible election, what happened to it? What became of it? I mean, there was first of all the issues of INEC officials turning up without basic things like gum and the rest of the things, or turning up late. Those were the things that started to dampen the morale of the people, but they stayed put. In my polling unit, for instance, we left at 6:30 a.m. the next day because we insisted that the INEC officials would not leave until, you know, the election results were uploaded at least offline. So it now brings me back to the voter education that was done. To what extent did people understand that no INEC official was supposed to promise that when they got back to their office, they were going to upload the election results? These were widespread reports. And then now we're seeing, by the next day, people who were unable to vote still were unable to vote, especially in FCT. And that's my personal, you know, that's part of my personal observation. And they feel disenfranchised. And going forward, with the collation of results and the announcement of the results, I'm still in shock that despite the basic mathematics, arithmetics that was done in Ekiti state election, for instance, you know, contrary to our expectations from the provisions of the Electoral Act, that is still one of the results that people are making reference to. And I'm wondering, these professors, you know, that a lot of children's destinies are left in their hands, that are making these kinds of basic errors to the glare of children in primary school. It makes me feel ashamed. I'm very ashamed of the performance. I'm very, very ashamed of the performance. And one would think that INEC would be positioned to put their best foot forward so that the courts, you know, would not have much work to do. But when you put a lot of rubbish forward, and I'm using, when I say a lot of rubbish, I was upset by the Ekiti thing, the basic arithmetics of the Ekiti election, right? If you send such a thing to the courts, what do you expect there? And then when people say, oh, go to courts, now go to courts is now, it now sounds like when people want to kill your morale or douse your morale and tell you there's nothing that you can do, nothing will come out of it. So we're getting to that point where we look up to the courts to become the hope of the common man yet again. You know, I deal with survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, and I know what it means, you know, when people quest for justice. I know how dampened the mindset of Nigerians are towards the idea of justice in Nigeria. And so telling people to wait on, go to the courts if you think anything was done wrong, you know, instead of fixing the basic things that should be fixed, which are glaring. Is a clear reason to void elections from a particular location, right? Because
you mean Austrian election?
I'm talking of Ekiti specifically.
Okay.
I mean, we watched Senator Dino Melaye get up and do some mathematics for us. After that, all the primary children, these children, all the primary school children I know have gone to do the same mathematics. and they have come up with similar results to Senator Dino Melaya, and they are wondering how people who they would meet when they have gone beyond secondary school are unable to do the same basic mathematics. And if those were things, that could make an election cancelled, and we're still seeing it as one of the reasons for justifying an overall figure, it gives me room to wonder what else is hidden in the other elections. And then, for instance, there was somebody who contested elections from Chibok. When he checked his election results, on the IREF, he found the selfie of a human being in place of his election results. There are so many of those things that we're seeing. There was even a selfie of a lady in a toilet, on the IREF. And I'm wondering, okay, so at what point did these things go wrong? Who is accountable? You see, all the human beings that did wrong, I look forward to all of them going to jail. That is where people would start to fear, doing wrong. There's a lot of impunity. We talk about corruption and impunity, but I've seen a lot of human error. And I don't think that because of the amount of technology deployed, I think that some people shut their eyes deliberately for things to go wrong. And all of it falls within the space of INEC. A lot is wrong. A lot is wrong. The Electoral Act, if we had stuck to the provisions of the Electoral Act, by now we won't have as much tempers, high as we do.
Did you listen to the President of the Senate arguing for whether or not e-transmission was part of the Electoral Act they passed or not?
It's unfortunate.
Saying what they passed was transfer of election results that is already collated, not e-transmission of results. Did you listen to that argument?
Well, I heard what he said. And while he chose to interpret English his own way, I am also aware that there is the offline upload that is supposed to be done, right? Which from a different point is easy to collate whatever has been offloaded offline. So why did we still need to have people manually take results and go and tell the voters that they would upload on their behalf when the voters were not looking? There were instances, there were reports about all those things happen. I witnessed a report of such, I witnessed one of such things, and I made a live video when that happened. It got heated. We made the INEC officials know that that was totally unacceptable, and they were telling us how it's what was being done everywhere. In fact, they told us that network would come only in the morning, and we told them since it was almost morning, we offered to bring mattresses for them so that everybody is comfortable because it will soon be morning again. But this was us standing up to our responsibility because we knew. In fact, it was one of us that went to cast votes that was enlightening the youth corpers on the offline version of uploading the results. And so I'm wondering, okay, what is happening in places where people are not as educated or tech savvy? So there's a lot that, there's a lot. Somebody in the last segment talked about the need to audit the process. I don't think it's just an independent audit. There are multiple dimensions to the auditing that needs to be done. From our point of view, we are complaining of what we saw and what we heard. The people who are visually impaired, how did their frustrations, how did this impact on their frustrations? The people who had mobility issues, I'm now talking about the persons with disabilities. How did this affect them? For the people who needed to move from different places, I saw how difficult it was for a lot of people to access their polling units because access to cash to pay for the transportation options that were available to cover the distances they needed to cover, was a difficult thing. People were still looking for cash to buy, and we're still. It's a crazy.
Let's look at the issue of, voting outcomes. I said it because on a lot of platforms on social media, tempers are festering. There are hot, anger beds going on. People are suppressed, silenced. People are pensive, and those who also are, in the winning spell are also being congratulated. It's a mixture of emotion. However, the heightened emotion is on the rise. I bring this question on, how the voting pattern across the country decided the outcome of this election, and what must be done going forward? Because it seems like we are a country yet united, yet very divided in our understanding of what our consequences are as a people together is.
Well, I think a lot of people, I would say from my personal, opinion, that after EndSARS, the youth found their voice. The youth saw their relevance. And we can see that it translated into the numbers with the voter registration. And it also translated into the numbers with the turnouts. The physical assessment of all the polling stations showed large turnouts of youths who participated in the process till the end of it. Not one polling unit did I hear that people left the officials to conclude the process. People stayed and waited and counted and even documented on video. Now, the voting process, because we had increased participation, there are increased expectations. And with the flaw in with the flaw in the technology that was deployed by INEC, and when I say technology, I'll talk about the human resources, the everything. And the fact that INEC is not even concerned about the obvious flaws that have been pointed out. It leaves a lot to be expected as per how people are going to continue reacting. People came out with high expectations, and the high expectations turned up. Before now, I looked at certain things. What the ruling party pulled in my polling unit, for instance, would have translated before now to what we would have termed as voter apathy, voter apathy, voter apathy. But we saw other parties, come through, and we saw more people get interested. We've seen a lot more people say, I wish I haven't been silent over the years. I didn't know that it was possible for my vote to make a difference. And so more and more people are seeing the need to participate in their civic responsibilities.
All right. Despite all the flaws which you have I highlighted here, and which so many people have also talked about, like you said, INEC doesn't seem to be on that same page with other people. Reading from the front pages of the newspaper, the INEC chairman is still saying that what he has, the results he has, speaks to a free and fair election. And the president, in congratulating the president-elect, also didn't talk about any flaws and all of that. Now, there's this story coming from the National Human Rights Commission, which is raising alarm that with this, the way this election has gone, the presidential and National Assembly election, and the way it's handled by the INEC, that there might be voter apathy during the March 11 election. That's just 2 weeks' time, really. So, would you speak to the youths out there who have actually stood till the early hours of the morning to defend their votes, and then they are seeing something that they are not comfortable with? Do you speak to them now that you're here?
Okay, while I feel that the spirits of many people are dampened because of the numerous irregularities that we see, I've also seen a lot of petitions flying all over the place because a lot of other countries promise to sanction officials or government officials or people, individuals who are party to distorting the voting process or distorting the voting process or whatever it is. I hope that those governments would live up to their expectations. That's one. But now again, we have seen the errors. We have seen where the loopholes are. The time is now to deploy our use of our technology to further document better what happens at the polls and insist. Now we know the stories where we've seen the stories. So we are at an advantage now to ensure that no INEC official leaves the polling unit until the process is concluded. That means the results are uploaded and every agent has their copies. So now that we're better informed, I see us better participating in the next elections, and I see more people being more vigilant. I see more use of the social media to hold accountable the INEC officials, being what will come to play at the gubernatorial elections.
All right, and finally to the Nigerian women, because a few emerged, a few lost, and I feel that a lot of them also feel that a lot of women did not come out in this election or probably lost to the primaries. So perhaps those that are going to come in March, what's your message?
Well, nothing about us without us. It has been the rule. And it's important at this point to document the processes and how each of the processes impacted on the women. Women are not homogeneous. There are different kinds of women with different realities. And it's important that we're documenting our stories. And these are things that are going to be relevant to auditing all the processes going forward. Because if we want to say the process was a success, to whom was it a success? Was it a success to persons with disabilities? Was it a success to rural dwellers? Was it a success to urban dwellers? Was it a success to people who do not have cars? Was it a success to survivors of sexual and gender-based violence? You know, to whom was it a success? Nothing about us without us. Use your realities to ensure that you continue impacting on the systems. Any attempt to keep quiet means you've given the people who you would rather not have their voice out there. And I'm not saying anybody's voice is irrelevant at this point, but any attempt to keep quiet means you're taking your voice away from the table.
All right, Dorothy Njemaze of the Women's Situation Room, Nigeria, taking a look at how the election went, and of course encouraging Nigerians who trooped out to vote at this presidential and National Assembly election to also not relent but come out with that force again for the March 11 election. We thank you very much for your time and your thoughts on this.
Thank you very much. And the last thought from me, and that's a quote from Lalo Odinga, who was also here a few months ago. He says, Africa's voters do not prefer authoritarian, non-democratic forms. It happens because an organized elite keen to protect narrow selfish interests has forged strategic alliance and captured strategic systems and institutions of various nations with the sole purpose of subverting the substance of elections. Well, may we not be the ones that they are speaking to.
All right, that's our show, the Nigeria Election Situation Room on Africa Independent Television. Of course, we'll be handing over to the next set of presenters who will be bringing you up to speed with all that will be happening as the president-elect has been, declared. And then at 3 p.m. thereabout today, we understand that certificate of return will be handed over to the president-elect, who will keep you up to speed with all the developments. My name is Nkoli Omodu, and thank you for your time.
And I'm yours truly, Dora Sidney Jack. Thank you for joining us, and let's keep hope and peace alive.
The Empower program, which is the job creation program with graduate and non-graduate components. This program has enrolled the following vulnerable youth to date. Batch A has a 200,000 number, Batch B 300,000 as mentioned in my earlier statement, while Batch C1 has 510,000 youths and Batch C2 490,000 youth. In total, we have 1.5 million of these youth, unemployed youth, that are being engaged and being supported.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Hey guys, what's poppin'? My name is Benson and I'm rocking with the ATS show.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Kenny Black.
My name is Frank Edwards.
I'm Tarina Patel.
So it's a girl in Kitchen Blessing Sunday.
Latifa Dedi Meji Adetona. Agbàgbé kò gbé padà síbẹ̀ kò sẹ́rí síbẹ̀ ATS show.
ATS ọlọ́run ló gbogbo fún wa o adé orí òkè.
Told you guys, we don't live here. We were actually from Lagos on our way to Ibadan, and his body temperature just shot up so high that we had to move in here. It's an emergency.
What is it that makes you happy? Play with water color on paper while you smoke your life up?
Alazi, I am trying to tell you the truth. What more do you want from me, woman?
I have worked too hard to allow your son take away everything I have worked for with his foolishness.
Your entire life's existence and happiness depends on this matter. Your mother locked you in your own house.
Madam Bintu Koka, is that your services will no longer be required here. Thank you very much.
The groundbreaking efforts of African visionaries who with undying passion and commitment have succeeded in pioneering technologically innovative applications of new media in African journalism and the media.
DigiVision Network.
This is a story of a continent awakening.
AIT DigiVision Network.
Over the past years, has played a critical role in empowering Africans with skills and insights into the use of ICTs in the context of a globalized world.
Join Africa's best ICT broadcast journalist of the
Bayero Agabi from Nigeria
to browse the world of ICTs for its impact, relevance and role in uplifting Africa from poverty.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to Lifelines with Nima.
Take it easy. Take it easy.
Take it easy.
It promises to be a wonderful experience.
Like him to go and donate blood, let me see. Is it because we're in a public place?
Yes. This show is all about opening the doors for you to see and learn from the experiences of my clients who come from far and wide to consult with me and my team. I will be your host, and my name is Nima.
Sometimes we have 2-3 demonstrations, all going to the National Assembly with opposing views, the same thing, but different camps.
Institutions that were created to address the issues have been weakened in various ways, in terms of funding, in terms of training, in terms of motivation.
Leadership is a responsibility. It's not a way to looting or manipulating the wealth of the country.
Some of the religious leaders are doing is that we are dealing with the spirit. We are to win people back to Christ. That is the job.
Security Watch Africa will continually go to where it's happening to bring you the news.
Chasing the money, chasing it back, no looking back. Me and my gang, steady fire, we leave no gap.
You don't put me on lockdown. You don't shut to my door now. See my heart today run fast.
Shock Tower.
The biggest obstacle in life are the barriers our mind creates. If you find a path with no obstacle, it probably doesn't lead anywhere.
The when you love yourself, you have that sympathy, you have that empathy, you have that emotion to give love back.
And most men are looking for women who are going to be assorted to be a backbone.
The key to freedom lies not in the blame, but in forgiveness.
And that's why I always tell women, stand in front of the mirror, touch yourself and see what part of your body makes you excited.
Character is one value you should never throw away. I will not disappoint you.
That is the best news that I've had so far.
Take it and get out and don't come back. Then you go school. You got a for a woman. Is that my son-in-law? After all this birth date. Are you serious?
Did you want to talk to me when you started having feelings for her?
I want this man out of this place right now.
This is not the first time I have poisoned Amaka.
Hey, hey!
Tell you something that I probably have not said in public. I don't know.
I don't know you have ever said this anywhere.
I haven't spoken about my dad on camera.
Again, I've never said this anywhere.
I don't know if
You know, earlier you talked about how this has panned out. But in terms of the cost to the economy, each time we have to do this, because in another 9 days we're going to do it again. We're going to shut down again totally for the next set of elections. And perhaps could you address how you think we could avoid this? Because those who are shutting it down, they also have good reasons. They talk about security, which I will come back to ask Mr. Idebe about. Because they talk about security, they say when people are restricted to particular areas, if you then try to move, you will stand out. Whereas if everything was allowed to move freely, then, both the ants, and the termites will move at the same time. So in that kind of situation, what do you think?
Thank you very much, Ladi. But before I address that question, there were one or two germane issues that we were discussing before we went.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Particularly this issue of leapfrogging or.
I hope you will remember this point I asked afterwards.
I will remember. Don't worry.
Okay.
I'm still young, Dad. Don't worry. Number one, I think Professor Kila got a bit of the issue of baby stepping or leapfrogging a little wrong. I'm not a professor, but at least I'm a student good enough to question my professor. I wish he's here. Is this country ready and able to leapfrog? My candid answer, based on my experience and understanding of this country, is a capital no. There's no state of the country that I have not been to. Number one, technology-wise, the GSM coverage hasn't reached the NOx. Will we tell the GSM service providers to go to each and every nook and cranny to provide network because we want to leapfrog an election? Number two, electricity generation is still epileptic, and we are still below